My name is Rich Hanlin, and welcome back to Mortgage Ballers. I have Mr. Justin Leach. I've caught him. We've been trying to work this out so that we could meet up and have this conversation to bring it to you. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation today. Justin is in California, but that's not the main thing I want you to understand. We're going to talk about somebody who really has tapped into the social media advertising market, putting himself out there. And that's going to be a conversation we're going to bring up today, but I also want to get you to know the man behind the scenes. I hate when people say, oh, loan officer. No, no. He does a lot of things, and on top of it, he's a licensed loan officer. Justin, welcome so much to Mortgage Ballers. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Right on. But I always want everybody to know right off the bat, where are you from? What market are you doing?
So I'm based out of Santa Barbara, California. It's about an hour and a half north of LA.
Right on, right on. And I was asking a second ago, we were talking about the insurance, fires that were a little south of you there. Because obviously you're getting into expensive homes where you're at. I would say even super expensive. Matter of fact, I'd like to be in Santa Barbara versus that Southern California area. I just think it's a much more beautiful area. But how long have you lived in that area?
Going on 21 years now. So
Wow.
moved out here. I'm actually born and raised on the Central Coast here in Santa Barbara County, but my hometown is about an hour north of here, which is nice because it's got a lot of family nearby. But been
Okay.
actually in Santa Barbara for about 21 years.
Wow. Then you know that area well. Because I'm saying most people, that is not a market that most people, I think, can get into very easily because of the high end. I mean, you go to Santa Cruz, you just keep going up and down the coast. It is a very close knit community, and there is high competition for those big houses, big loans, a lot of trust that's needed because obviously the realtors involved got to know who they're dealing with. They just don't deal with anybody because there's too much on the line when it comes to that value or that market. Um, how long have you been doing loans? That part of it.
Here in Santa Barbara for the last 15 years of
Okay.
lending. So, and you're right about it's a tough market to break into because a lot of these realtors here, been here for 20, 30 years and they have their set LO that they've been working with. And because the purchase prices are so high, our medium home price is 2.2 million. So that's the expensive paycheck to risk on an LO that you don't know, right? So it does take some time and some courting to get in with the realtors here.
What's a first time home buyer looking at? Is there such thing as a first time home buyer in Santa Barbara? You got to
Not
go in
really, and it's
50
tough,
miles inland.
especially these last 2 years with the elevated rates. It wears on you because you'll get someone finally to move forward with the application process. They'll provide all your docs, and then you come back and you'll tell them, "Hey, you're pre-approved for a $800,000 home." They go, "Well, what can I get for that?" And I go, "And in the within a hour driving, maybe, but not here in Santa Barbara." So it's been really tough for first time home buyers. I'd say the majority of the first time home buyers that I do work with, they have family money where they're getting a big gift for the down payment, keep that payment low. So it's a tough market for first time home buyers, and we don't have VA or really any other buyers other than kind of it's usually their second or third home, or they just have a huge down payment for that higher purchase price.
I run that sometimes in San Diego, but I still hit the VA market. I have people that will push up, but they're happy if they can see the ocean, not necessarily be on the ocean. Matter of fact, I was going up the coast a little bit, and someone said, "Oh, I have whitewater view versus blue water view," or something like that. I didn't
I
really
haven't heard about
understand what they were talking about, but basically, there's on the beach where you're seeing the waves. There's nothing between you and the water, and then there's people up on the hills that have a beautiful view, but you're going to drive down to get to the actual water. There could be roads, there could be other people in between you. Um, but boy, it gets more and more expensive the closer you get to being able to have nothing between you and the water. Um, I was telling you, I went to the Ritz Carlton. That's really the only part about Santa Barbara I remember. But um, I'm trying to think. Obviously, UC Santa Barbara. I've had some kids that played baseball that I coached that went there. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful, beautiful campus and baseball field. And I thought, man, you guys are spoiled. This isn't college. This is incredible.
You definitely, we didn't know how good we had it. I was went to UCSB. I'm a gaucho myself, and when I was in college, I lived right on the ocean. I used to actually cast my fishing rod off my balcony on my
Oh, wow.
and pick up fish right off the balcony, and I don't know if I'll ever have that opportunity again because those houses here in Santa Barbara are pushing, 4 or 5 mil and up if you want to have that opportunity from your own house. So it was definitely a great experience.
I've never had anything like that. Now that sounds pretty cool. Hold on, I'm just going to throw a cast off the cliff there and get in the water. A beautiful area, and congratulations on not having to leave that area, because I can tell you a lot of people I know that are in those high end areas. It's so, number one, the market's been a little interesting the last couple of years, let alone if you got to get into a jumbo market and into those prices. But you're right, it's a different customer. I find when I get into that price range, yeah, some people will burn me left and right. We talked a little bit, you came through the Wells Fargo at one time. I used to lose to Wells Fargo because they would go for the high end client and say, hey, if you bring 250, 500,000 with you, we'll give you this. And they pretty much would give the loans away. And I couldn't compete with that. And I would give the loan away, make $1,000, and I still couldn't beat it because they would literally credit everything in order to get those assets. Um, did you actually do loans at Wells Fargo, or what did you do at
Yep.
Wells
So I
Fargo?
was the private mortgage banker within the private bank
Private mortgage
at Wells
banker.
Fargo. So I was at Wells for 11 years, actually. And 10
Okay.
of those, I was a mortgage consultant or LO. And you're right. So when I transitioned out of Wells, it was a hard transition because I knew when I was at Wells, I had the best rate in town, hands down. No one could touch me. Now, as I went, as I as my tenure at Wells increased and towards the last couple of years, what happened is they continued to tighten the hatches where I had the same clients that I either did refi or purchase for the year before, their income went up and their equity went up, and now they don't qualify. So it became reputational risk. It also was a tough transition because no one can compete with Wells Fargo's rates. During COVID, when rates were at their rock bottom, I did I think it was a $4 million loan at 30-year fixed rate at 1.75%. Because rates were about 2.25, and they had over $1 million with the bank, so they got another half off. So their 30-year fixed rate on a $4 million loan was 1.75%, which just giving money away. And obviously on the broker side, no one could touch me. So definitely was a tricky transition. And basically what I had to do is I can't service those clients anymore. And I'll tell my realtors, hey, if you have a picture perfect client, tons of income, tons of assets, perfect credit, they're going to fit in that box better. Now, the box is hard to fit in. And also, Wells Fargo is really not doing a lot of lending anymore. They actually laid off the entire office in the region. So I made a good switch when I did. But now I cater to, like I have products now with Expert that we never had before. Yeah, I've never done a bank statement loan until these last couple of years when I joined Expert. Now I'm doing a ton of them. And just for example, I had a client where on paper, he made nothing. So at Wells Fargo, he wouldn't be able to get a loan. And with the bank statement loan program, we got him pre-approved for $250,000 a month in income. So pretty stark difference going from, Wells to Expert, where we have just such a better tool belt to work with.
No, I agree. I agree. You know, that's incredible. I love hearing that. I thought I was cool. I got a jumbo $2 million deal at 3.125. I thought that was cool. I have been humbled. Here, let me give you the humbled. There we go. Because that's incredible. Um, I want to know more about this. I want to get some other questions, but you and I have talked a little bit. I know you do a lot of advertising. You do a lot of social media, and when I say a lot, like I want people to really understand you are very invested in your online Google, reputation, resume, things like that. Talk to me a little bit about all the things that you're currently doing and how you do it. Obviously, I don't want to give all your secrets away, but you're probably one of the most invested people I've interviewed that does so much using these social media formats that are available out there.
So yeah, I've been putting out content for about 2.5 years now. So I have a team of virtual assistants that help me with my editing, and they help me with other things. They help post it, but for the most part, I also used to have them help me with the scripts and the content, but now I kind of took that back over. I actually hired a mentor that has over 1 million followers just on Instagram alone, and so he's been kind of coaching me through this. But something I'm diving head deep and head first into this year, because what I learned is all the past content I was putting out, it was a value add, but there were some key components that I was missing. For example, I didn't have what's called a CTA, or call to action, at the end of every video, which you want on every single video. You got to ask them for a fault. You want them to follow you. And so for the last 2 years, until recently when I hired this mentor, I was always chasing views, to where, over the last couple of years, I've had probably 100 million views across the different platforms. Now, does that equate to dollars? Not necessarily, because views really isn't a metric that can make you money. Really, the most important metric, and this is what I've just learned here with a mentor the last couple of months, is followers. You want people to follow you so that you can get them into your community. And so now I'm telling my post to where, because I have views that have posts that have 2 million views, 0 followers. So, because there's certain metrics that we were initially going for to get views. So, for example, we do videos that were 2 to 3 seconds long, very short and sweet, and they have a lot of information on the screen. So the person would have to watch it 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes 5 times to read everything.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
Instagram and a lot of the platforms measure the likability of the post based off of how many people finish the video. So when you style a post where it's only 3 to 4 seconds, but it has more information, and they count the amount of, oh, this person watches the video 5 times, we're going to promote it to more people, right? And also comment shares. So that was a metric I was always kind of going for as far as getting a lot of views. I've got a lot of views, but it doesn't translate to followers. So the metric that I'm going for now is get as many followers as you can, build up a community. Once you have a community and you have enough followers, then you could start to monetize those followers. You could start using other applications like MiniChat. Have you heard of this?
I haven't.
So MiniChat is basically an automation that you can integrate with your Instagram or other socials, to where it's those people that would say, hey, if you like this video or you want more a mortgage guide, comment guide. And so MiniChat is the
I've seen that.
program that's built into it, to where if you comment guide, it automatically DMs or messages the person back with an information. Usually it's a format that says, hey, are you interested? It gets their commitment. Yes. What's the best email to send the guide to? Then you're building the email database that you can continue to market to. So there's a very systematic way to go about it. And I'm just kind of diving back in. It actually took a break for the first quarter of this year, just to kind of recalibrate, because I was getting a lot of views. I just wasn't getting a lot of follows. So I hired a mentor, and now we're kind of pivoting into a different style. So one thing I was doing before is those really short and sweet videos, 5 seconds long, where they're getting a ton of views. Now I'm doing pretty much exclusively talking head videos, because what my mentor had shared is, he said, when you just do these little short and sweet videos, it's not building a brand.
What's a talking head video? Explain
So
what that
talking
is.
head video is when you're just like this. I'm filming
Okay.
myself talking, right?
Okay.
So just yourself, it's you talking, right? Versus other carousels is like where you have
I've seen those.
your words on the screen, they scroll to the next screen. And then you have other just standard reels where it's like the top 10 states people are moving to, and it has a list, right? So that's an example of one of the posts I was doing, is top 10 states people are moving to. And it'd take them more than 2 seconds to read all the information on the screen. So those ones were getting a ton of views, right? But they weren't getting a lot of follows. So I've been really trying to reiterate and A/B test what I'm producing out there, and following all the analytics. So for each post that you have on most of the platforms, mainly right now I'm targeting Instagram, it allows you to view the insights. So within the insights, you can see how many are going to your followers, how many views are followers, how many are non-followers. And really the key metric is non-followers, right? You want people that are outside your current ecosystem or community. You want to reach them so they join your community, right? So you want to tailor your content to those people. So that's something I'm just diving right into. So every single day I'm putting out content, basically talking head videos, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And we're posting on Instagram story, Facebook story, YouTube shorts, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Okay. That's
So,
one heck of a dedicated platform there. I didn't hear YouTube. Why not YouTube?
so I am doing YouTube shorts.
Okay. You are doing
So
shorts.
one
Okay.
thing I am going to eventually transition into as well is so everything I'm doing is what's called short form,
Short
right? They're
form.
very short and sweet videos. They're typically under a minute long, right? That's how shorts typically work on YouTube. I haven't done any long form yet, But I do have some colleagues, my buddy Andrew, that's having success where he stopped doing all Instagram. He's like, you know what, I'm just going to go all in on YouTube. So he's putting out these videos of YouTube for specific products. Yeah, sometimes bank statement loans or no income loans. And I've seen in a very short time, so they've been doing it about a month, he's already getting traction. So that's something I want to transition to as well, as doing more long form, because YouTube is really the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube are kind of the key platforms to really get business. But long form, if you're doing long form content, YouTube is the name of the game. It's really the only platform you can put it on.
Have you done mess around with any AI stuff like NVIDIA IO or ChatGPT writing your scripts, or do you just come up with your ideas by yourself?
So I pay for both ChatGPT and Gemini, which is Google's
Gemini.
version. I
Okay.
use ChatGPT every single day of my life for everything. I have it integrated on my iPhone where I open up my iPhone, I literally click on the screen and it opens ChatGPT. So I have it within one of those toggles. So ChatGPT, my mentor actually helped me build out a custom GPT specific for my scripts. So it took a lot of deep diving. We basically created what's called the hero's journey, where it's my journey through life. We created my what's called content pillars, where what are all the topics that I'm going to be talking about, and then we created and this took weeks, if not months, to really dial all these in. It took deep dive and then go over my life and what I want, So basically, once I created the content pillars, the hero's journey, and my ideal avatar, so I went in and said, hey, I want a client, ideally between ages 30 and 45 that, is busy, that's not going to ask me a ton of questions, that's not going to shop me. And I went through and just I basically went and said, what is my top 5 clients I've had in my career? What do I like about them? Okay, what are those attributes? That's the clientele that I want to target, right? So I created my ideal avatar and then I built that and all into the custom GPT. So it generates scripts and mainly hooks that are tailored specifically based off of me, my history, and the things that I want to talk about and that the client that I want to work with wants to see.
No, I'm amazed at ChatGPT. I've been trying to get more. I've been trying to push it to see just how deep it will go from downloading. So if you have paid YouTube, you can download videos off of YouTube. That way you can get away from, you can mess with it and say, hey, ChatGPT, analyze this video. Because if you just give it the link, if they already have advertising and stuff in it, it kind of gets messed up because it's doing all of that. Little tidbit there if you're trying to do
So
that.
within that custom GPT that I built, I take every transcript that I have with people. So every transcript I have with my mentor, I record, I
Okay.
convert it into a transcript, and then I upload it into that same GPT. So it's
I like
constantly
it.
learning more and more about me as with every piece of information that I get that I could give it to it.
I do. I like that. It learns, and when you say you have your own that's built, that's what UWM did. They built their internal. Every time we ask it a question, no matter which way we ask it, it's getting smarter and smarter. It never sleeps. It's always on. It learns and learns and learns. That's what I like about it. People get scared on it. I'm like, no, it's still a tool. I don't yet see it negotiating anything. There's no emotion to it. It's weird when it attempts to give emotion. It doesn't come out the same when I see it do that. But I really am impressed that I can get about 70 to 75% close to what my editors can do from a live standpoint. Um, but what I did the other day is I said, oh, cool. Hey, I want you to go on Zillow and I want you to search all of Georgia, every county, and tell me which county, which city. I ran it a couple different ways to say, give me the highest rent to value ratio in the whole state of Georgia. And I kept rewording it to see just how deep I could get it, but I was amazed that it finally brought it up. Said Sandy Springs meets the high, and I said, okay, cool, I'm gonna go check it, and it was doing pretty good for the most part. Because I really, some of these states that I'm out here in Georgia now. I was in California till December of 2022, but now I came this way. But I'm amazed at the rent to value ratios. You got Georgia to Alabama to Tennessee down in Florida, but compared to my investors, I do a lot of investors up in California, and we have to put quite a bit down. They love DSCR loans and the bank statement loans, stuff like that, but a lot of times they have to put a lot more down in order just to break even. My investors really don't care about rates as long as they can get the right numbers. But when I show them over here, they sometimes can buy two homes and they're already hitting their numbers, but they end up with two properties. These properties do not appreciate like California properties, but it's just, you do have hardworking people all over the United States, but finding those pockets, Ohio is one of those places right now seems to have a high value to
It's
rent
tough to
ratio.
find markets that cash flow. I always tell clients, I said, there's typically two types of markets in real estate. You have cash flow markets and you have equity markets. I said here in California, it's getting tougher and tougher to find a cash flow market where you could buy a piece of property and it's going to cash flow. So really most of the value in California, especially my market here in Santa Barbara, it's an equity market. For example, I bought my house during the height of craziness back in 21. And the very first year I owned my home, it won $1 million in value. Right? How many
Wow.
days, weeks, months, years do you have to work to make $1 million? Right? I did nothing, and the first year went up $1 million in value. So that's the value, of equity markets. On paper, it doesn't really help you until you end up selling it, right? Or if you do an equity line, you can pull some capital out and use it that way. But equity rates aren't the best right now either.
No, I hear you. I'm kind of sitting out right now. I'm just watching. I'm trying to see where this economy is going to go. What are your thoughts when you're talking to people? People might ask you that question. You're in a different part of the world than me. Um, People say, why did I get the states that we got when we opened this company? Because during COVID, we were seeing where everybody was leaving to. And so our first seven states were, you had Nevada, you had Colorado, you had Texas, you had Tennessee, we had Georgia, we had Florida. And so we're like, cool, let's start with those. Let's follow these people because those are our customers out of California that trust us. If we just get those licenses, they can now still be our customers. Um, Now you have people doing all kinds of stuff. You have people that transplanted that want to come back and things like that. I always find that interesting. Believe it or not, you might not know this, but out of all the states, based on how many loan officers that we actually have licensed in a state, Colorado has our highest loan to licensee state of all states, which I found kind of interesting. California has our most loan officers, but when you take how many loans we do in a month, I think we have over 400 people licensed there. But we're not doing 400 California loans per month, but Colorado, if we have 100 people there, we're doing 200 of our loans are Colorado. It's almost 2-to-1 ratio.
Wow.
That state's been very interesting to watch because it's not cheap. It's getting more and more expensive. And I watched this. Here's another thing I saw. Um, Two people in the same market in Boulder, Colorado, both have the same license. One person's setting records every single month. The other person saying, hey, I'm going to have to get out of the industry. I can't find a single loan. And I'm thinking, how is that possible that two people can exist in the same market? But that's when I realized it's one thing to get a license, but there's so much more. This is not just get a license and the loans will fall in your lap.
Right.
And sure, you might get one or two, but that's not a full time person. If you're not in this full time, you're going to quickly realize that in this market, it takes a full time ability and thought process. And then you're adding uh, green energy, I call it, because every video you do works for you now. And it's always there. People can go and they find you and they can just get educated. And I think it builds up a reputation,
Absolutely.
especially in a marketplace where you're at, where reputation probably might open doors for you where me not being from there and they can't find anything in the area, like, who are you in our area? You can be great over in Georgia, but in our area, what is your expertise? So the fact that you live there, I think, should open doors for you as well.
Well, one thing that social media does is it does provide credibility regardless of where you're at. So someone sees your name, they look
Agreed.
you up, they could pull up your socials and get, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. They could do a very quick scan. And that's one thing initially when I first started doing social media, I noticed is, hey, I didn't get a ton of clients through Instagram, but I got a ton of exposure. So I'd go to open houses, be like, oh, I've seen your videos. And these are realtors that I've never seen before. I don't even know their name half the time. And they'll come to me like, hey, I love your videos. So just giving that extra exposure, and just around town too. I was at the bar I went to a new restaurant, checked the bar, and the bartender's like, hey, I watch your videos. Never met the guy in my life, right? So it's just giving you exposure to people that you normally wouldn't come across, in person. So that's a huge component of social media as well.
Are they asking for your autograph? Are you to that point now?
Not yet, working on it.
I have yet to have anybody. I did have somebody that emailed me the other day, said, "Hey, I just want you to know I watched some of your videos. Really thought they were cool." And I was like, "Okay, who are you?" I didn't, because no one's ever done that before. I was like, "What is this? One of my loan officers? Who is this?" But it just kind of caught me off guard, because you're right. It's hard to get those subscribers. I think we're like 5,300, and they were a hard 5,300 a year to get to that many, because obviously every time you release something, your subscribers will see it,
Right.
and you hope that about 20% will see it. But my the content wasn't really designed for the public. It was designed for loan officers to get better. That's the whole thing behind mortgage ballers, because that's what I feel like we do. We battle every day to find that one loan. And if you're stuck at 2 loans a month, how are you going to get to 3? If you're at 5, how are you going to get to 6? If you're Stephanie Gilbert, you're at 15 trying to get to 16. How do you do that? And it was designed to trying to find that formula. There's always a formula to me. Everything, energy, time, the right advertisements, put it all together. You should get this return on your time. You're in uncharted territory. There's a lot of people out there, but I like that you're doing it in the sense that anything you get isn't going into this huge company. It's coming to Justin. Um, and you know that feels good when you see something pop into your inbox, and you know where it came from because you know it's working. But I always tell people I'm looking for quality, not quantity, and that's where I'm constantly trying to work on. Anybody will take a free giveaway and give me their information. That doesn't mean they're ready to do a loan. And if I tell people I'm going to fix their credit, guess what? I get a lot of people need credit fixing. But to get someone who's ready to buy, that's where, and maybe that's a good question for you. I use a CRM to bring in those, and then it starts to filter them and ask questions. And eventually, if they hit, I want to talk to Rich and set an appointment, they've gone through a couple different pre-screening things to make sure that they've answered certain questions. Do you have any of that, or do you just
Yeah,
get
so I have
every
a
single
CRM
lead?
similar to that, where you're building them up, right? You're providing value. You have to be. It's a very delicate process because you don't want to
Absolutely.
overload them to where they unsubscribe, right? So you kind of have to baby them in. At first maybe once a month or every other month, and then you kind of build it back up to where it's every month and maybe every 3 weeks, to where you have to be very delicate too with the content that you're providing, to where you have to provide value and not selling them, right? You're educating, providing value, to where you're getting them to be part of your community. You're developing that trust, to where eventually when they do want to move forward the next step, they already trust you, like you, know you, to where, hey, that's the person I'm going to go to for that answer.
Totally agree. Totally agree. This conversation went really deep towards that, only because I don't get to talk to many people that are attempting to figure stuff out social media wise. And I always tell people, like, oh, I can't do any of that. And I'm like, cool. When's the last time you just got a sign that has your phone number, says, I saved your neighbor $2,000 a month, call me, and just stand at a busy intersection 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and I'll bet you get phone calls. If there's 50,000 people that pass through there, you will get some phone calls saying, hey, I could use savings. What's that all about? Um, that's about the cheapest method, but that's a reactionary to something you're doing. But I always tell people you can do it, but oh, well, I'd never do that. And I'm like, I get it, but you'll never make a video because you're so worried about how you look. You don't want to learn a new skill. You think you're too old. And I'm like, we are in a day and age where how are you going to stick out and not just sound and look and be like everybody else? And we don't have people feeding us, right? Wells Fargo, you can't just sit there and they have all these other products that, oh, by the way, did you have a question about a mortgage? Let me send you to Justin. We don't have that. So,
What's interesting about what you're saying is so
yeah.
many people are worried about how they look on camera. And nowadays, if you look at my content, it's more polished, right? I have a studio behind me, I have a nice camera, I have a nice mic, right? And what's shifting in social media, which I struggle with, and I'm trying to get better at this too, is people really want that authentic view. They want you, like for me, I,
Agreed.
I can't just wake up the morning, pull the phone over to my face, I have drool hanging off my coming down and take a video. And that's kind of what people want to see. They want to see that authentic, off the cuff, unpolished content. And I'm trying to kind of rebrand and get out of the studio set and film in different areas now, because when people see the same studio behind you, they're like, oh, it's the same stuff, right? You have to switch up the background. And so there's a lot of videos out there of people just getting ready in the morning talking about finance, right? And those do well because they're like, hey, this person is a normal human being, right? It's not polished. So to those people that say that, hey, I don't want people to see me, how I look or I might look, well, that's what people want to see. They want to
What they
see you
want,
in your natural
authenticity,
state because
authentic.
it's far more relatable, right?
No, I totally agree. I know who your customer is. Go back through your customers. It'll tell you a lot about who you're trying to be with. People say, "Oh, Rich, you must get all these like multi-million dollar people," and I'm like, actually, I don't. I don't do well in that community because those people are so, they'll burn me for an eighth of a percent, right? They'll burn me for $1,000. I don't make good money on those loans. I feel like I have to keep giving them away, but yet I still got to get them done. I still got to do all the work. I relate better to hardworking middle class blue collar workers, and that I know that saving them some money or getting them in a house because maybe they've had that second, third kid, and that's what we're seeing right now. People have been idle for 3 years, but now, hey, they're starting to take off again. But this is incredible. We're going to come back and we're going to have a conversation here in about. I got some stuff coming out that I'm going to release, and it's going to be interesting that we could bounce this off of each other. Because there's some stuff I'm building that I want to give to the expert home lending loan officer so they can experience what it's like to post something and see leads come in to their CRM and understand how that works. Um, but it's something I've been wanting to give back to like, why work at Expert? You can go anywhere you want. Well, I know some of you guys are doing your own things, but I want to help with that. Some of you guys, I give you this much and you go miles. Some people just need to get that one extra loan. Some people I give this much, they do 10 extra deals a month. And I think we're going into that market, as well as some coaching stuff that I've been working on. Justin, tell me this. You sound very dedicated to what you're doing, and I applaud you for that. But I want to know, when you're not in loan mode, when you're not doing pre approvals, when you're not setting up social media, when you have downtime, if there is such a thing, what does downtime mean to you? What kind of hobbies do you have?
So the last couple of years, it has been a elevated rate environment, so there's just less business. So what I did is actually built out and developed Airbnbs. So I have a couple of Airbnbs here in Santa Barbara that I basically built from the ground up and renovated all of them, built them out, built all the systems for them, and now have been helping other friends and clients build out their Airbnbs as well, at least set up the systems for it. So something I do is I manage Airbnbs, and pretty much most of it's already automated. Really, only thing I have to do is occasionally I have to accept or decline a booking. That's really it. Sometimes I have to program the front door lock for them. That's about it. But
All right.
Other hobbies, I'd say, is developing properties. So I kind of grew up in real estate. My parents have a decent real estate portfolio. So I always tell people that when I was a kid, I hated summertime because all my friends got to play and I had to build houses for my parents. So, which was now great because, I know how to do so much more things. I remember when I first went to college, um, I was at a friend's house and someone had installed the window wrong where it just wouldn't close. So I took one look at it. I brought it to the center, popped out the window, turned it around and put it in. And they were just blew their mind. They had no idea that you could do it. And those little things that just come second nature to me. So that's one thing I really do. I just love real estate in general. I have rental portfolio, I have Airbnb portfolio, and just developing properties. So that's one thing I'm working on. A big development right now in Santa Barbara is a law came out a couple of years in California called Senate Bill 9. And essentially what it allows you to do is it allows you to split your lot either 50-50 or 60-40. So I've been going through this with one particular property that, man, it's been 2.5 years of red tape and over 6 figures in consulting fees at this point. But essentially, once we're able to split it and all the hurdle, I'm learning a ton doing this. Once we split it, basically the value of that property goes immediately $1 million. So now it basically takes one property in Santa Barbara now into 2 single-family residences in Santa Barbara. And then on each one, now I can develop an individual ADU or accessory dwelling unit on each, adding to each one. So essentially this property taking 2 units and eventually going to build it out into 4, possibly 5 different properties. So that's something I'm passionate about, something I love to do. As far as kind of extracurricular, other than real estate, I play a lot of pickleball.
Pickleball.
Play
Okay.
pickleball probably 3, 4, as much as I can. And Santa Barbara's beautiful weather. We're spoiled out here, so you can play pretty much year round here in Santa Barbara. So that's one thing I just absolutely love doing.
Right on. I like that. Um, you said something. I want to ask you a little bit more about that. So, are you building houses from the ground up? Are you just revitalizing existing houses? I'm trying to think, picture Santa Barbara, the type of houses that are there. Santa Cruz, I can see some smaller houses, but I've never saw like smaller houses in Santa Barbara. It seems like it's a big task to get anything in Santa Barbara.
It
Is
is
all your
tough.
stuff in Santa Barbara?
All most of my portfolio is in Santa Barbara. All my Airbnbs are in Santa Barbara. The properties that I develop are in Santa Barbara, and mainly it's just taking a property and not demoing it. I mean, not taking it down to studs or building it ground up. It's mainly just taking what you got and making the best of it. So, um, mainly just new flooring. There's some minor. I put in doors, I put in windows, in new places, built decks and such. But most of it is, I'd say, cosmetic to where you're just making it into a beautiful home from what it was.
Okay, right on. And do you am I hearing you right? You manage those yourself?
I do. Yep,
Wow.
I
Okay.
do.
I don't manage any of my stuff. I
Well,
I
it
tried,
depends.
but I was
I
horrible.
don't have that many, but most of them, I use what's called the channel manager to where all the communications are handled. So, for
Okay.
example, you go to try to book one of my Airbnbs, it automatically messages you and says, "Hey, based just confirm your reservation for this day, this many people, this amount." And then I ask every single person in that initial communication. I say, "Hey, just want to make sure you're a good fit. Before I accept your booking, please confirm the following." And what we'll say is, um, "Are for one particular property, I say, hey, there's 16 steps to get to the front door, right? So just for ADA people. Quiet hours are between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. to respect our neighbors, and max occupancy is whatever it may be, 6, 8. So that's automatically built in. My only really thing that I do is once they respond to that, either accept or deny the booking request, right? From there, everything's automated. So the second I accept it, automatically text and communicates to my cleaners, hey, you got to clean on this day. You could build this out. I haven't, but it can auto program the front door code. So the codes or the locks that I use, it doesn't have the integration with the channel manager. So every 2, 3 weeks, I'll go in and it takes me about 5 minutes, and I'll program the next, 2 weeks of reservations. And what I do is with Airbnb, it tells you their phone number. So what I do is I just put the last 4 digits of their phone number, and then in my automatic communications prior to their arrival, it tells them all the instructions, how to get there, how to check in. And it says, hey, the front door access code is your last 4 of your phone number. So it gives that kind of personal touch to each person. So really
Okay.
the only thing I have to do is accept or deny the booking, and then occasionally I'll run to Costco to get some TP and some paper towels, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. We do Airbnbs if we're going to be anywhere. We usually don't do it for just one night. And it matters, like if somewhere we're trying to get away. But, we have Gatlinburg here, which is an incredible place. A lot I didn't even know about Gatlinburg, but a lot of people go there. No, obviously, I'm keeping an eye on Florida. Florida is interesting for me right now. A lot going on there. Um, I have some insurance guys in a business group that I'm part of on Wednesdays, and they're explaining to me that there's different types of homes that are built differently in Florida, that weather the storms better, things like that. And I'm like, hey, would you go down there with me? Because I want to go look at properties. But they're like, oh, you want to buy in this area, this area, this area, because that's the places we'll still insure. And I'm like, and this is what you're going to look for. I'm like, how about I pay for a weekend and you go down there with me? Show me what you're talking about. I think I have no problem paying for help, education. People can do things so much faster than I can, that are truly
Expediting the learning
experts.
curve.
And I learn so much. I have no problem paying for coaching of any kind, not just loans. I like to learn a lot of stuff. Um, Tim Ray helps me a lot on our stuff. We both have different channels that we're working on, but we tag team different applications, AI to different automated things. Um, I just get amazed compared to where we've come from.
One thing I'll
Um,
share is if you own or operate Airbnbs, You could
Hmm.
travel anywhere in the world, and that Airbnb is a write off because it's market research. So
Yeah,
I've
I can
traveled
tell
through
you,
state,
Mike
Mexico.
Soka is one of those people that takes huge advantage of those things.
Right.
How'd you hear about expert home lending, by the way?
My buddy Andrew King actually came
Okay.
over, so he referred me and introduced me to Nate, and the rest is history.
Oh, fantastic. I know who Andrew is. Let me look on here. I mean, I was going to ask you, you're in such a unique market. That's people go, oh my God, how does he do that market? Here's one. I like this one because we get a lot of different answers. You're not very old, but I think this is a great question. If you are old, you sure as heck don't look it. So how about that? That's a plus for you. But coming out of high school or college, going back, what you know between your ears right now, what kind of advice would you give to that younger Justin, to give them a leg up in life to get to where they need to do faster based on what you know today?
So I've thought about this a lot, and actually, I tell a lot of people this mistake. I'll say that I've made over the years. So when I first started in banking and mortgage with Wells Fargo, very quickly I moved up the ranks. I started as a banker, I think when I was 24 years old, and within the first quarter, I was number one banker in the market. Within the second quarter, I was number one banker in the region, and just absolutely soared. And so being young and doing so well so quickly, the mortgage team took me over, or they transferred me over. So my first step up the corporate ladder was into become a LO, or a mortgage consultant with Wells, which now had the same rank in the corporate ladder as my branch manager. So I I did very well. I think my first year ever in mortgage, just was, back with the refi boom. I think I did just shy of 20 million my first year ever, as I think I was 25 or 26 years old, and I ended up outproducing the vast majority of people in the office who had been doing it for. Everyone called me the kid. So I think I was 25 or 26, and the closest person to my age was, I think, 58. So whenever I came into the office, they just called me the kid. And so that year, ended up outproducing almost all these guys that have been doing it for years and years. And so they stopped calling me the kid after that. And so early in my career, I just outworked everyone. When I was a kid, I was just basically a little child slave. My parents worked me to death, and so I just had that work ethic of putting it in. But the big mistake I made is I had a lot of success early on, and I rode that success. But I had this, I'd say, not maybe a chip on your shoulder, but to where I had this mentality where I'm doing so well, I don't need help. And so because I was benchmarking my success off of everyone underneath me, because there was no one else in the office that was really outperforming me. There wasn't other people around me that were above me, that were doing better, especially my age, right? I didn't really have a lot of colleagues or friends that were doing as well as I was. And so that whole time I had that benchmark of, hey, I'm doing better. I don't need help from everyone else. Now looking back, especially, I wish I would have known this a decade ago, is mentors. Find people that are doing better than you're doing and learn from them. Now, over the last couple of years, especially now that I'm independent and not with Wells, I'm able to actually spend money on mentors and be able to write it off. Now we're 1099. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on mentors, and man, the ROI on that investment is exponential, right? So that's one thing that looking back, I wish that I would have hired mentors, or seeked out mentors and seeked out advice from other people. Because had I known, I just didn't know they existed, right? It just wasn't in my mind to think, hey, I need to shoot higher. I need to find someone that's doing better and reach out to them and learn from them and pay for it. And that's the hard thing is, hey, I don't need to pay someone else. It's that ego, right? It's just being young and having an ego. Hey, I don't need to pay someone for their advice. I can do it myself. And looking back, man, you know, I'd be just so much farther along in life. I'm doing fine, but be so much farther along in life if I would have just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, had that mentality of reaching out to someone, or hiring mentors to help me out, or coaches.
No, that's great. I could tell you I interview so many loan officers, and when I put this out to 627 people at that time, 100, no, was it? Yeah, 627, like 125 actually said yes, give or take one or two there. But people are like, oh my God, how are you going to have that much time if you're going to give everybody an hour? And I was like, well, I kind of already know what's going to happen. And sure enough, 20% of them took me up on it, right? For whatever reason. And I just didn't know which 20%. So I had some of my top people, and I had some people that are averaging one deal a year. But I'm like, you're going to get the same interview, because part of what I want to do is help people see another way to get business. And the other thing is, I learn a lot about what they do in a day, which I'm going to ask you here in a second. But I found that there's certain attributes. Everybody's busy, right? We all have the same amount of time. Everybody's busy, but busy productive versus busy unproductive seems to be a huge difference between the top to the lower end of that spectrum. So that'd be a good question. I'd like to ask you, what does a day in the life of Justin Leach look like?
So I say my day always starts the night before. So I got this habit when I was at Wells, and back in those days, you're doing 20, 30 loans a month and just cranking, good old days of 21, right? And so every single night before I finished my night, the very last thing I do before I sign off is I would compose an email to myself. And it was a rolling email. I'd forward the one from the day before, and I would list everything I needed to do the next day, starting with the toughest thing first. So I think a lot of people have heard of um, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, right? So if you have to eat a frog is the first thing you got to do every single day, that's probably going to be the worst damn thing you do that day, right? Everything after eating a frog, a live frog every morning is going to be easier than that. So I'd always start with, hey, what's the top thing on the list? And I'd tackle that. And sometimes there's days where that's all you worked on and that's all you got done, right? So my day starts the night before, putting together a list of everything I need to do, starting with the number one priority, and then I just start working on it. So um, usually I wake up, kind of try to have a slow morning. It's hard because I work from home and have a home office. So it's a blessing and a curse because I'm a workaholic. So it's easy just to wake up and go right to work, which I am definitely guilty of. I literally wake up, make my coffee, and go right to it. But I've been trying to implement better where I take a slower morning. You do maybe some not go straight to work, either do some reading or listening. I have a certain podcast I listen to every single morning, just to give me a brief of the day. And then usually around 10 or 11 o'clock, I try to hit the gym just to get a break. Other little things I do through the day is every day at 10, 12, and 2, I have a little reminder that pops up on my phone. It says 1 minute push-up challenge, 2 minute squat challenge, and 1 minute curl challenge. And so I'll just take a break from what I'm doing. I'll go over and for 1 minute, I'll do curls or I'll do push-ups or I'll do squats just to break up the day, because you'll just sit there. I mean, I'm guilty of this. I'll literally sit. I have a standing desk too, or I'll either sit or stand at my desk. I mean, there's days where if I didn't do that, I'd be at it for 8 to 12 hours, just locked in, So I try to break up the day. And then, in the afternoon, I try to, if I'm not working, I generally, it's bad. I love working. I love working on my future, trying to grind. Usually in the afternoons, I'll try to play some pickleball or do some other kind of exercise. I try to go for a walk or at least do something active after every meal. So just something little. That's typically a day in life. Is I still have obviously my properties that I'm managing and other projects I'm managing, but that's kind of a standard day.
I'm reading a book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It's just some of the things you're saying, it makes me like, is he reading the same book? It almost sounds like the same book. A lot of mentors will, Tony Robbins, a lot of them just say it a little bit differently, but it's very similar. But that particular book kind of hit a chord with me about some of the things I was doing. I've always been accessible, and now here I am going to be 58, and here I am 35 years in. But one of my strengths has been just letting people hit me all day with quick questions. Here's the answer. Get going, get going, get going, get going. But every now and then someone wants quality time, but yet I built up this little quick answer thing. So the phone just keeps ringing, 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 ringing. And they're not getting quality rich. And so I don't want to be hit and run or drive by rich. I want to be quality rich. And Rich Hanlin by that. I'm not rich. I'd like the money too, believe me. But some people don't like that because I'm not as accessible. But if you want to talk to me, let's have a quality conversation. And if you don't need the full hour, cool. But if you just need a drive-by, shoot it in a text or an email, because I can multitask all day. But to call me for a drive-by, it means I have to stop what I'm doing and specifically just have that. And I don't mean that mean, but there's some things where it's hey, I have a quick question. Oh, based on that answer, now it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And next thing you know, we're talking for 30 minutes off this little quick question. And usually I'm pushing somebody else back. And I hate doing that. That's not quality or fair to everybody. One thing that you might not know. So I'm 35 years in as of September 1st. Blink of an eye, let me tell you. February 1st, I came in, and after I did all the breakdowns for 2024 and I saw the number, I was like, God, we're over 600. We're 44 states. I've kind of accomplished what I hoped for. I'm not really looking for 1,200 people. If it goes there, that's fine. But I want to concentrate on the 600. I mean, that's a big number. Um, we have a lot of people working admin, a lot of people recruiting, overlapping each other because we've been in build mode, grow, grow, grow. And I just, sat down with all the owners and I said, these are not my strengths. I can do all these things, but that's not my strength. My strength is I originate. I also do real estate. I flip houses. Like that's what gets me more business. And I do a lot of advertising. I do lots of different things. If I could help the 600 get one more loan. So can I help each person? I don't know. But if I give all of them the same ability, some people will run with it. Some people may never change. But the measure will be if we get to 600 extra loans per month. And I'm like, that's where I want to be. After 35 years, that is my strength. Let me give this company the best of what I can do. And we can hire people to fill in on me as far as we hired a chief compliance officer to handle all the audits. That was ungodly amount of time taken in a day. It became almost 50% of my day, and then usually 2 recruiting calls a day, which can last up to an hour. So that's 2 hours. And I would just take it home with me every night and I just keep going. One of the best places I have conversations is on a 45-minute drive home because it's uninterrupted. So I save some of my uh, longer calls for that drive because I know I'm not going to be flipping back and forth. But I know so many people in this industry, and I thought, I am going to be 58. And I wish I could say I'm going to do this till I'm 90, but there's no way. What can I do to give back to this industry? The people who've trusted expert, who've helped build this platform, they're blessing my life. I'm like, I want to give. So I'm working on some stuff to be able to give back. That if you're with expert, you get it for free. Like add it to what you're already doing, your arsenal. But I want to be able to say, okay, it's already up and running. This is what it looks like. All I gotta do is hit, copy, 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 and send it to you, and it's yours. But um, the things that everybody talks about, automated systems like what you're talking about that automatically do some of these things. So many people are like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, cool. A lot of this stuff, once I get it set up, all I have to do is click a button and it'll copy it, copy it, copy it. Now I just put your name, your name, your name. And I want you guys, I want you to make as much money as you want to make. I want your lives to be changed as much as you want it to be changed. What's the one thing I can't teach you though? I always tell people, I can get you all the money in the world, but if you have bad money habits, I can't do anything about that. So we're going to talk about that with some of the people. Like, what do you do with money when you start making? Because this market's turning; it's already turning, um, and we have people that will be multimillionaires this year off of commissions. And I love seeing that average loan officer make huge amounts of money for their markets. But the next question is, God, what do I do with that? Some of them have never made more than 150,000. Some have never seen what 400,000 looks like, let alone $1 million or $2 million. And we have earners that will make that. And they're like, what do I do with that? How, you know, if you do things right, it sets you up for the next time the market kind of takes a pullback. But there are always going to be pullbacks. But I love that you have multi-income channels going. That's one of the things I preach all day long. We're in the industry. Why are we not using our licenses to also help us? The only here's the question: are you DRE or are you
No, that's something that I
DFPI?
want to explore. I haven't actually. It's on my. I'm going to try to get my broker's license this year just to get
Okay.
that out of the way. It's something that's on my list to do this year. I always kind of kick myself for not having it because but also my market. The realtors here are very finicky, or so they hear you got a DRE. Sometimes they're a little bit hesitant to kind of work with you, but
Okay.
I'm not gonna let it stop me this year.
Yeah, it's just the way you're talking. If I had to guess, I would have thought you already probably were a broker because you're doing so many things. And I tell my real estate agents too, hey, I've got a transaction I'm going to do for myself. Um, if you want to do it, this is what I'm going to be doing. And sometimes like, yeah, I don't want to share that with my broker or whatever because I'm already limiting what I'm going to do it, or I'm giving a credit or something like that towards my own personal transactions. Um, when I do family, I have a lot of realtors that they're all over the place, so I have to do it by location because people say, "Oh God, why didn't you give me that deal?" I'm like, "It's Southern California. You're in Sacramento. Like, I can't really give that to you. It doesn't work that way." It's the same as the Bay Area. Even I imagine Santa Barbara. The people in the Bay Area, they almost won't even take an offer if I'm sitting in Sacramento. Like they want somebody within their metro list to turn that offer, and
It
they're
is a little
very
tricky. They're always,
Tahoe can be that way
realtors
too.
are,
It's crazy.
yeah. And it's very true to this market too. They want to recognize the name on the pre-approval.
Yes, I agree. I agree. All right, I've been holding you up, man. Thanks for taking this time. I think
Absolutely.
people
Thanks for having me.
are going to learn a lot
I feel like
from
we could have
you.
talked all day about this kind of stuff. So we'll have to do
Now
round
we're going
two.
to follow up specifically on the social media side. Everybody does a little different. I'm going to get Tim Ray in on this conversation because he's slamming Instagram. He's not getting the results that he wants, and he's not backlinking. Here's a question: do you do backlinking, like tier one backlinks, that kind of stuff?
I not right now. I was doing that to my website, but I'm built to where every YouTube post, every short was backlinking. But right
Okay.
now, I'm just trying to build up a database before we build that back. Right now, I'm kind of in
Okay.
growth mode of just getting as many followers, and then once we have kind of more followers, we'll build out the infrastructure to monetize those followers.
I had somebody here at the office because experthomelending.com, I have a couple of URLs, and they're like, hey, I need to get access because we're building some bots on the back end for our payouts and attach Arrive and stuff into it to make some things flow better. And Andrew Jeffrey's been working on that here in our office. He's like, I need to get into your HostGator account. And I'm like, okay, don't get nervous when you see it because there's like 150 URLs in there that I
You were
have
telling me that
because
a lot.
yeah, he's like, well, people don't understand, like, what do you do with those? And it's like, I type in stuff like, you can do a Google search and see how are people saying things. And it's like, oh, this one's getting 500,000 hits a day. And it's the words, you know, how do I get a VA home loan for a purchase? You don't just type in VA. What do people actually type in? And you can mess with those words and get the highest return and that's my URL. I go get, how do I get a VA loan
Yeah,
to
you're
help
one
me
of
with
those
the
guys.
purchase?
So when I was looking to
.com.
brand my own business, man, I can't tell you how many hours and hours on GoDaddy.com just looking for yours. And like 99% of, I'm like, oh, I got a good one. And it's like,
And they're found.
gone. And then I'd always put it in I put it in and it's like, this site is not working. I'm like, every single time, like 99% of them are
Yes.
gone and they're not an active site. There's
Yeah.
someone snatched it up or they're trying to sell it for like $7,000 kind of thing.
Or they
So
try and sell it. Yep.
yeah,
I noticed they have so many add-ons now, from .org to .biz and all that stuff. And I'm like, but I am starting to see that more and more because you can get kind of crazy with that. Some of the crypto stuff is getting like that, to
right.
where you can do that. But man, I appreciate you spending a lot of time with me today. I think that a lot of people are going to get a lot of information out of this. You're doing fantastic. You're highly successful, both in the loan industry and in life. I think more people need to see, but I can tell by the attributes right off the bat. I mean, it doesn't take much to separate the two. And after a little bit of a conversation, you're like, oh, I know exactly what this person almost does every single day. Highly organized, is doing some either coaching and or social media posts, something to stay connected, constantly connecting with people. One last question. This will be a good one for you. Do you have a CRM that stays in contact with previous clients, or how do you handle that?
I do. So I uploaded. So I have kind of my own database I built out through Google Sheets of all
Okay.
my previous clients. So I uploaded that to the CRM.
Okay. Yeah, it seems to be one of the attributes of staying in front. They're constantly touching their people in a professional way, because it's so hard to get that person. Why would you ever let them go? And you do a great job for them. Um, Catherine Barnett does a really good job. She looks for life events of her previous clients. Somebody had a baby, someone's getting divorced. I mean, good and bad life events, but that creates opportunity as well. Stephanie Gilbert is just, I love listening to the minds of these top originators. I mean, in this market, Catherine Barnett just did 17 loans. And I'm like, okay, that means, I mean, back in the COVID days, 2021, I had people that hit 50 deals in a month. Um, and they were burnt. They were burnt out because
Yeah.
they like, okay, you better get a team. We're gonna have to get a team. You can't do this by yourself. But that really can, we're not in that market yet, but boy, it is sure on the fringe of that this could turn very quickly. And what do we talk about? 400,000 licensees at the end of 2021 down to less than 100,000, like 93 or 94 licensees left right now, the second. There's not going to be much competition because you can't just flick a switch and flip those licenses back on. Sometimes you have to take the 21-hour course again, or you got to reactivate, and you got to place it back with a broker. You got to do some different things. And, the people who are up and running are going to absolutely just dominate that market. And I hope you guys do. I wish you nothing but success for 2025. Thank you for your time with Expert Home Lending. I know you can go anywhere you want, but thank you for taking the time to spend with us and educating me. I appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Rich. Look forward to it.
All right, Justin. Thanks so much. Hey, everybody, that's Justin Leach. I'm going to put his information down into the description. If you want to reach out to him, if you got a loan you want to ask him about, if you got a jumbo over there in Santa Barbara, there you go. He's got the experience to walk you through hand by hand and get it done. Justin, thanks so much today. I do appreciate your time. I know you're busy.
Thank you again.
All right, take care.